Welcome to Fish Wrap TV, episode 23. Today is Friday, July 9th, 2021. I'm your host, Janie Hansen, back again with Q Lair for your market update this week. The annual Giant Day celebration, it just kicked off here in Blue Earth, so you may catch some sounds of joy coming from the festivities right outside our studio on Main Street. But in this episode in the markets, we'll be covering corn, soybeans, wheat, and what's now become our regular check-in on the inflation outlook. All right, Q, looks like there was a big drop in the corn price coming out of the weekend rains. What's going on in the markets?
Well, coming out of the long weekend, 4th of July, we had quite a bit of rain up here in Minnesota. It hit a lot of the areas that were really needing it, a lot more than they thought. So, one of the nights it literally rained through the night here. So we got quite a bit of rain. The crops have really responded to it. Of course, after the 3-day weekend, they opened it up and just put a big gap down. So what we're seeing here is a gap that's about 22 cents, which is a big one. Mm-hmm. Okay. So not only that, but if you look below this market, let me put the arrow here. This little guy has been sitting here for months. We have a gap down here below the market, just below 480, mm-hmm. and that's like gravity right now. So the way the market's smelling right now is that we're going to have to make an attempt to get that gap filled below, and then we're going to see what we can do on the gap above, and that should be it mm-hmm. for the crop year. The open interest is way down. The interesting thing is that corn, beans, and wheat on that huge down day, open interest barely moved. So what that meant was we had, huge volume, but we had, literally everything was changing hands. So having said that, they're saying, this was much stronger long hands, but it also could have meant stronger short hands.
Yeah.
Who are, laying into this thing because rain does make grain, especially corn. Mm-hmm. If you look at this chart too, you see that we had a pennant that we've been talking about. It was declining from the above and increasing from below, and it broke through. And this is some major technical damage to corn today. So even though we had that huge gap and blowout earlier this week, today's close was just absolutely devastating, I think. So having said that, it's really that, we've got to get some news, get some business, because this corn crop is only going to get bigger. The ethanol story has been pushed aside because of, the administration allowing the refiners to push away a bit. Mm-hmm. So, with the crop getting bigger and bigger, I think the only thing left is if we have some super, super hot, dry weather right at pollination time, that may be a bit of a story. Otherwise, this is not looking good for longs. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, the same with the beans. Let's take a look at these guys. It is setting on a precipice here, as you can see. Yeah. Corn broke through, but, beans are sitting here. Still a gap above. They don't really have the gap below because we always fill those up. So, corn was a bigger story early, which, mm-hmm. That was what we call a measuring gap and a breakaway. And then, of course, this we'll see what this gap is above us, mm-hmm. whether it's a confirmation or what it is. But
yeah. So what does that mean with a measuring gap?
Measuring gap is sometimes when the market breaks away and then can't get back to fill that gap, that'll measure where it's going to go. Okay. So it's kind of like a head and shoulders. You can predict where the market wants to go based on the size of the head to the shoulder, mm-hmm. kind of a thing. So. It's not necessarily a trick. I mean, it's pretty much standard technical analysis. I mean, this is mm-hmm. not secret sauce, but
yeah. So the market likes to have that continuous fill. So if there's a gap, it wants to go back and fill that. Is that what you're saying?
What they want is that there's a price, and at all prices there is some volume, mm-hmm. and if not, then there's a reason for that. Okay. And and the thing is, we of course have left gaps. Especially in like hogs and cattle, mm-hmm. they're so, once they get moving, they just gap.
Yeah.
And especially if you get something, like spring wheat in 2008, I mean, you had like 15 gaps in a row mm-hmm. because you were limit up. There was just no trade. Mm-hmm. So Of course, it tried to fill on the way back down, but there was just way too much for that story. But beans are acting a little bit better than corn at the moment. I keep hearing reports out there, and from what I've seen in the fields, driving between Blue Earth and Mankato, which I get is not exactly the corn tour.
Yeah.
But I've noticed the beans are struggling just a little bit, and corn has just really been growing big. And when it gets dry, it just rolls up a little bit, tries to get some moisture, but it is just ripping out there right now.
Yeah.
Producing oxygen.
Yeah. So, any other things to note in the bean market?
Oil and meal have been really, they're shaking out a lot of the stories where, with the biodiesel, it's continuing to, unwind that situation. The problem is canola. Again, something's going on in canola yet again.
Some noise.
Some noise happening. It's dry up there. And, we got soybeans from, here in Minnesota all the way down to the Gulf. But canola is really the upper tier of North Dakota up into Canada. It's where the majority of the canola is grown here on this continent. So, they've struggled just like, North Dakota has with the drought. And, they were really getting after it today. So, bean oil just win again. So it's just one of those things where, you just got to mind your P's and Q's with the soybean oil until we figure out what the hell's going on in canola up there. Because it's tough to get a good story out of there right now as to what's really going on. Because everybody's saying, "Oh, it's dead. It's over. There's nothing left." But of course we know that's not true.
Yeah.
But 900 Canadian a ton or 1,000 Canadian a ton should stop this thing because just the demand will not be there.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that's a story, and of course, North Dakota plays right into the the wheat story we've been talking about for weeks.
Yeah. So in the wheat markets now, what's cooking literally
spring
wheat.
Spring wheat. The drought monitor. Our index just isn't budging. The crop continues to deteriorate. From the conditions report. I mean, nothing huge. But yeah, it continues to it keeps the bull story going a little bit here. The spring wheat has been stuck right around $8 now, and I'll tell everybody who wants to listen that the SEP-DEES Minneapolis spread tells me that they're not concerned. Okay, if that thing starts going, look out. Okay, because if you remember in 2008, March went $4.20 over May. Okay, now SEP-DEES is at 4 cents.
Oh, that's a little different.
That's a long way to go.
Yeah.
But what it does, the spreads are the canaries in the coal mine. And when that thing starts going, that's when I'm going to get concerned.
Okay.
The other major story is, we've been talking about Kansas City. Keep your eyes on that. It just buried Chicago this week. Now, DEESs are 20 under. They were 80 under about 4 or 5 months ago. So now all of a sudden it's just 6-7 cents a day. Boom, 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 boom. KC is 20 under and goes the night. And it's just running right now. And what that does is that is taking the pressure off spring wheat because this crop came in just dry weather is great for winter wheat. I mean, just awesome. And the protein's been solid and the crop's been solid. So you say, well, the crop is solid and everything else, and it's coming in big. Why is it rallying? And the thing is it's because of spring wheat. Okay. So, I tell you, the thing is that this is why trading wheat is so dangerous because the story should be that you just sell Kansas wheat and walk away from it. This would have cost you buku. Yeah. Here this last time. So it's just one of those things where corn and beans are just corn and beans, but wheat is a real different beast. Okay. And it's we've got our eyes on that. We got a rain system coming through. Of course, we got a hurricane that hit, but it went straight up the west coast of Florida, heading right up the coast, just like we talked about. Okay. So we're not going to get a big system from that, but there is a system coming down here, supposedly going to hit Minnesota and North Dakota tonight. Yeah. It looks like there was some rain earlier. And
coming through. So, so are these higher prices in the grains working their way into the inflation story?
Yes, they are. And what's happening is that we've got a situation where not only are the grain prices high, but the dollar is strengthening, and also freight has doubled. Ocean freight. So what that means is that the freight disadvantage we suffer from over here in North America is getting worse, because now instead of $23 a ton freight disadvantage, we're looking at probably $35-40 a ton, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
If you have to go, so it's almost $1 a bushel disadvantage we're setting over here. So we're in a situation where grains are going where they're going because of the COVID reopening and everything else, and China rebuilding their hog herds. But going forward, this has to play in again. And even China, I mean, every port is packed, and they've got ships out there in the ocean just sitting there waiting to unload. So they haven't bought much lately, from us anyway. And people are starting to get a little itchy, and that's why you see the chart look this way in the beans, is because it's just sitting there. To be honest, technically, beans want to break.
Okay.
Beans want to break, but oil won't let them. And people are scared
Yeah.
to sell this thing.
Yeah.
So, we saw what happened with spring wheat in 08, which was a protein run, and beans, of course, are the big protein piece. So, you've got to play this gingerly, but this market does not look good. And, if we get some rain, right through the heart of North Dakota this week, it is going to be hard to keep, spring wheat up in the 8s. So, we were talking about, spring wheat in the 5s, 7-8 months ago. Now we're in the 8s.
Yeah.
So people keep talking, all this, blah, 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 this bullshit about, this stuff going higher. But the thing is, you got to realize where the stuff has come from. So we have really put some good numbers out here. I mean, anytime that John Deere is ringing the bell and super happy, you better believe we've had a big run in grains.
Yeah.
And this is where greed and fear come in, because the stories are beginning to turn over, as we call it, which is that the ethanol and the biodiesel story has been pushed to the side. We're getting rain in North Dakota. We're not seeing the 130,000, 250,000 ton sales to China every day like we did when this thing was running. And what that means is high prices has cured high prices. And if you have fantasies that it's going back to 16 and a half, you may get left with a hanky at the train station. So it's a fascinating week. Of course, Monday, 11 a.m. is the July WASDE report. Okay. The June stocks report that we just had is the most volatile report, which everybody just saw that.
Yep.
But this is the first time they're going to have the crop breakdowns by class in wheat.
Okay.
So this is where wheat gets really, really nasty if you got it wrong. So this is where spring wheat gets broken out, white wheat gets broken out, red wheat, and of course hard wheat. So this will be our first cut and see what the USDA thinks of this. Also, the higher acreages that just came out on the acreage report for corn are going to be put into the supply demand. This coming report here. So it's going to be really interesting. The 87 plus or minus million acres in beans. Don't believe it. I still think there's 90 out there.
Yeah.
But we'll see. And if you're staying at home, just don't stick pins in Q dolls. So, but that's why we have markets. And the thing is that the market's acting like it knows that there's more acres out there.
Okay. You're seeing that indication.
Yeah. And to be honest, if it weren't for soybean oil and canola, this thing would have really taken a big hit this week in the beans. So
it's that oil rally keeping up.
Yeah, because we had days where corn was down 10 and beans were up 3 or 4, and it's just like you see these relationships. Yeah. And it's not like you can't buy acres anymore because we're in the meat of the crop year now.
Decisions have been made.
Yes. And they're starting to talk about buying acres in 22 now. So we're going to start talking about that here on Fish Wrap in the next couple of weeks. Is the 22 bean corn ratio and see what the market is really telling the farmers what it wants. So,
Yeah, and the Farm CFO updates.
exactly. So big report coming.
Yeah. So aside from WASDE on Monday, any other things to keep an eye out for next week?
The rain systems are continuing to look like they're coming through the northern tier states. If it happens, it's going to have some issues keeping these markets up. The problem is we got some super dry hot weather out there in the far northwest, Washington, Oregon, which could cause problems for white wheat, because that's where the majority of the soft white wheat is grown. So keep an eye on red wheat, Chicago, because those are the two soft markets. Okay. And so, the story is going to evolve quickly. Once corn and beans get made, I guess you shouldn't be calling it made, but we have a much better idea what's going on. Then the story will be wheat, because this dry weather up in the Pacific Northwest, if we get a short crop in soft white, then soft red is going to be hot. Okay. And of course, you see what happened with Kansas City running. So it's going to be a real interesting week coming up here.
So, all right. Well, that's all for this week's market update. For those of you who are Croptimize Pro subscribers, check out the Croptimize Hedge Report for further insights on the market implications for grain sales. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can learn more and sign up at thefarmcfo.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.